There's a seemingly simple detail that completely changes the way you live, carry yourself, and are treated, and almost no one talks about it with the depth it deserves. It's not vanity. It's not status. It's identity. The way you dress every day sends a silent message to the world, but most importantly to yourself. Before any words are spoken, your body is already communicating who you believe you are. For a long time, many women believe that dressing well is something reserved for special occasions, for when life gets better, or when everything is finally sorted. But what no one tells you is that the process works in reverse. It's not life that improves first so you can dress better. It's how you see yourself that starts to shift everything. Clothes don't create a powerful woman. They reveal her. They activate her. They support an identity you might already have inside but don't access every day. Dressing well daily is a quiet act of personal leadership. It's an intimate decision that reorganizes your posture, your energy, and even the opportunities that come your way. If this already makes sense to you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick with me, because what's coming next might completely change how you see yourself every single day. First topic. You dress to remember who you are, or who you're forgetting to be. Before any external mirror, there's an internal one. And the way you dress speaks directly to it. It's not about fashion, trends, or other people's approval. It's about identity. The clothes you choose every day quietly reinforce the version of you that's in charge. Or in many cases, the version that's gotten used to hiding. I realized this during a time in my life when everything felt stagnant. I kept saying I wanted to grow, but I dressed like someone who wanted to go unnoticed. Clothes with no intention, automatic choices, everything super comfy, but empty. Until the day I decided to get dressed up with nowhere to go. Not to post, not for anyone else to see. Just for me. Something shifted that day. My posture got stronger, my words clearer, my presence more whole. Dressing well is a daily reminder of your worth. When you see yourself with care, you treat yourself with more respect. And when you treat yourself with respect, the world follows. Not because clothes are magical, but because they anchor your identity. They remind you constantly that you're not small, not a backup plan, not just making do. The most confident women you admire don't dress well to impress. They dress well because they already see themselves as someone who deserves presence, attention, and intention. Comment: I dress like someone who knows her worth. This statement strengthens the bond between who you are and who you're becoming. Second topic. Your brain believes what you wear before you even notice. There's something powerful happening in your body before you even leave the house. Your brain is interpreting who you are based on what you wear. This isn't an opinion. It's human behavior. The way you present yourself triggers specific mental states: confidence, posture, clarity, authority, or insecurity, withdrawal, and distraction. I noticed this on days when I left the house with zero intention. Clothes chosen on autopilot, whatever look. Interestingly, those were the days I spoke less, accepted more, stood my ground less. Not because the world had changed, but because I had changed on the inside. My brain was running on invisible mode. On the flip side, on days when I dressed with intention, even for simple tasks, something switched on. My voice came out firmer. I held eye contact. My decisions were quicker. It wasn't vanity. It was internal alignment. My clothes were telling my brain, today, you are presence. When you dress well every day, you train your mind to operate at a higher level of self-respect. You leave survival mode and step into leadership mode. That's why so many opportunities show up when you least expect them, because you're already ready to receive them when they do. The women who become role models don't wait for special occasions to feel strong. They build that state daily, starting with how they see themselves in the mirror. Comment: my presence starts with how I dress. This phrase reinforces the connection between your outer image and your inner strength. Third topic. Dressing well is a quiet act of daily self-worth. There's a huge difference between dressing out of obligation and dressing by choice. When you dress just to get through the day, you're sending yourself a clear message. Anything will do. And that message, repeated daily, starts to spill over into areas that have nothing to do with clothes, your boundaries, your decisions, your relationships, your place in the world. I noticed this when I started paying attention to how I treated myself on the days I didn't get ready. I expected less of myself, accepted less from myself, and interestingly, accepted less from others too. It was like my energy was constantly in power-saving mode. Until one day, tired of feeling that way, I decided to run a simple experiment. Dress well every day, no matter my mood, destination, or who would see me. At first, it felt like too much. Then it became a ritual. And that ritual started to shift the way I related to myself. I spent the whole morning unknowingly reminding myself that I had chosen to treat myself with care. That feeling carried through the entire day. I spoke more clearly, said no more often, upheld my boundaries more firmly, not because the clothes were pretty, but because the gesture was powerful. Dressing well is an intimate agreement. You decide you're worth attention, even when no one's watching. And when you treat yourself that way, the world starts responding in kind. Comment, I treat myself with value every day. This statement anchors the habit that supports a confident woman, inside and out. There's something many women feel but can hardly explain. You might start taking better care of yourself, dressing better, improving your posture, but deep down, you still carry a quiet insecurity. That feeling that, despite the stronger outer image, the foundation is still fragile. Because there's no point in feeling elegant on the outside if deep down, the fear around money is still running the show. Fear of not having enough. Fear of being dependent. Fear of not being able to sustain the life you're beginning to build. That misalignment is exhausting. It's like you're ready to level up, but something invisible is still holding you back. The truth is, dressing well is a powerful step, but it needs support. It needs security. It needs a healthy relationship with money, so the woman you see in the mirror matches the life you actually live. Because when your financial foundation is shaky, even your self-esteem wobbles. You get dressed up, but you hold back. You speak up, but hesitate. You recognize yourself and then retreat. That's why the Wealth Code was created. A guide designed to transform your relationship with money in a simple, accessible, and deeply liberating way. It's not just about finances. It's about emotional security, autonomy, and the freedom to choose your own path without fear. It's the internal complement that supports the confident woman you're beginning to express on the outside. If you feel ready to align who you are, what you wear, and the life you're building, the link to the Wealth Code is in the first pinned comment. Fourth topic. When you dress well, you change how the world treats you. People respond to what you embody, not what you say. Before you even speak, your body has already said something. The way you dress creates a silent first impression, and that impression shapes opportunities, respect, attention, and even how far others feel comfortable pushing your boundaries. It's not about superficial judgment. It's about human perception. I saw this clearly in two very different moments in my life. In one, I was dressed in a neutral, almost invisible way. I was interrupted several times. My ideas were overlooked. My presence felt weak. In another moment, dressed with intention, aligned posture, wearing clothes that reflected who I was on the inside, the reaction was completely different. People listened, waited, respected. Nothing about me had changed, except how I presented myself to the world. When you dress well, you don't ask for space. You take it, and that changes everything. You start being treated as someone with clarity, value, and direction. Conversations shift in tone. Opportunities show up more naturally. Not because you look better, but because you act like someone who knows her worth. Dressing well isn't about being accepted. It's about not hiding. And when you stop hiding, the world adjusts its gaze. Comment, I take up space with presence. This phrase reinforces the decision to be seen, heard, and respected. Fifth topic. Dressing well organizes your mind before the day even begins. There's a quiet sense of order that settles in when you choose to dress well. It's not just aesthetic, it's mental. The way you prepare to leave the house sets the internal state with which you'll face the world. When you dress without intention, your day tends to follow the same pattern: chaotic, reactive, disorganized. But when you get dressed with care, something aligns inside you before the first decision is even made. I noticed this on the days I woke up late and threw on whatever clothes were closest. The rest of the day seemed to spiral out of control. I'd forget appointments, postpone decisions, accept interruptions. It was like my mind had switched to improv mode. On the other hand, on the days I got ready calmly, even without anything important on the agenda, my mind felt clearer. I thought better, made better choices, reacted less. Dressing well is a ritual of internal organization. It's the moment when you move from mental chaos to a state of presence. Clothes become an anchor. They signal to your brain that the day has started, that you're ready, that there's structure. And where there's structure, there's focus. The most productive and grounded women you know likely share this habit. Not because they're perfect, but because they've realized that external clarity helps create internal clarity. Comment. I start my day with intention. This statement strengthens the habit that aligns your mind, body, and presence from the moment your day begins. Sixth topic. Dressing well reinforces boundaries you don't need to verbalize. Some boundaries don't need to be said out loud. They're felt. The way you present yourself communicates how far people can go with you. When you dress carelessly, the world assumes it can intrude, interrupt, diminish. But when you dress with intention, something shifts in the air. You start being treated with more respect, without needing to explain anything. I noticed this when I started paying closer attention to everyday interactions. On days when I was poorly dressed, not in the sense of simplicity, but of neglect, people talked over me, made unreasonable demands, disrespected my time. On days when I was aligned with my image, conversations were different, more polite, more direct, more respectful. That's because the human brain is constantly reading signals, and clothes are one of them. They don't create authority. They support the authority you already have inside. Dressing well is a quiet way of saying, I know who I am, and that message is instantly understood. Women who own their presence don't need to raise their voices. They position themselves through their body, their gaze, their image, and that helps avoid unnecessary tension, conflicts, and boundary pushing. Dressing well isn't about being unapproachable. It's about being naturally respected. Comment: my boundaries are perceived. This statement anchors the posture of someone who doesn't need to explain herself to be respected. 7th topic. Dressing well strengthens your confidence even on tough days. No one wakes up confident every day. There are mornings when your energy is low, your mind is tired, and the urge to hide is strong. It's exactly on those days that the way you dress makes the biggest difference. Because when your emotions waver, habit holds you up. Dressing well becomes a quiet form of support, an anchor when confidence hasn't shown up yet. I lived this on days when everything felt out of place. Problems piling up, insecurities screaming, the desire to give up creeping in. Instead of letting myself sink into neglect, I got ready. Not to look strong for others, but to remind myself that I was still here. And something interesting happened. Even without solving anything right away, I felt more capable of facing the day. Clothes don't eliminate insecurity, but they create structure so it doesn't paralyze you. They remind you that even if you're not at your best, you still deserve care, presence, and dignity. That simple gesture can keep a bad day from turning into a bad week, and a hard season from becoming your identity. Strong women aren't those who never feel weak. They're the ones who don't let weakness dictate their choices. Dressing well is one of those quiet choices that keeps you standing when everything feels heavy. Comment: I hold myself up even on tough days. This statement reinforces the strength that comes from conscious self-care. 8th topic. Dressing well changes the decisions you make throughout the day. Most of the decisions you make aren't rational. They're emotional. And your emotional state begins forming early, right when you choose how you'll present yourself to the world. The way you dress directly influences the kind of decisions you accept, delay, or stand behind. I noticed this by observing simple patterns. On days when I dressed without intention, I expected less from myself. I'd postpone important tasks, avoid difficult conversations, tolerate situations that bothered me. Not because I was weak, but because my internal state was out of sync. On days when I dressed well, with care and presence, my decisions were different. I said what needed to be said, closed what no longer made sense, chose with more confidence. Dressing well creates a state of inner leadership. You start acting like someone who respects herself, and those who respect themselves make better decisions. You begin choosing what adds value, not just what's convenient. Your clothes don't make decisions for you, but they put you in the right emotional state to not abandon yourself throughout the day. Women who dress well every day aren't more controlling. They're more conscious. They understand that small choices shape big results. And they know that, many times, a single decision made in the right state can shift the course of an entire week. Dressing well is like creating an invisible filter for your decisions. Comment: I choose with clarity. This statement strengthens the identity of someone who leads her own life with presence and intention. 9th topic. Dressing well creates consistency between who you are inside and what you show outside. There's a quiet discomfort when what you feel inside doesn't match what you're showing on the outside. It's that sense of being off, like you're living below your own potential. Dressing well every day helps close that gap, not to create a character, but to support, externally, the woman you're already becoming internally. I felt this clearly when I started to change on the inside. More self-awareness, more boundaries, more clarity, but still showed up to the world the same old way. Something felt off. That's when I realized my image was still tied to a version of me I had already outgrown. Adjusting how I dressed felt like aligning 2 layers of the same identity. Suddenly, everything made more sense. I didn't need to fit in anymore. I showed up whole. When there's alignment between the inside and the outside, your energy stabilizes. You feel less split, less drained, less conflicted. Dressing well daily builds that bridge. It's a simple gesture that prevents the self-sabotage of shrinking on the outside while growing on the inside. Women who truly evolve don't live in contradiction. They adjust the external to match the internal, and that consistency is noticed. It generates trust, credibility, and respect. Dressing well isn't about changing who you are. It's about allowing who you are to show up clearly, without noise. Comment: I present myself with coherence. This statement seals the alignment between your inner identity and outer presence. 10th topic. Dressing well is a daily commitment to the woman you're becoming. At the end of the day, dressing well every day isn't about clothes. It's about commitment. Commitment to your growth, your presence, your future identity. It's the decision every morning to no longer treat yourself like someone in permanent construction, but like someone who already deserves respect. Now, I realized this when I noticed that the version of the woman I admired didn't just show up on good days or for special events. She was present on ordinary days, on days without applause, on days when no one was watching. Dressing well on those days was my way of saying, I don't need perfect conditions to recognize myself. This habit creates something powerful: consistency. You stop swinging so much between highs and lows of self-esteem, because every day you reaffirm, through a simple act, that you're aligned with who you want to be. And that consistency changes everything. It changes how you walk, speak, decide, react, and take your place. A woman who dresses well daily isn't trying to prove anything. She's sustaining who she already is. Dressing well is a silent ritual of self-respect. It's the simplest way not to abandon yourself. And when you don't abandon yourself, life starts meeting you at that same level. Comment: I honor the woman I'm becoming. This statement seals your daily commitment to your presence and growth. Dressing well every day is not vanity. It's not superficial, and it's not over the top. It's identity, posture, energy, and decision. It's remembering who you are when the world tries to make you forget. It's aligning the outside with the inside. It's holding boundaries, clarity, confidence, and presence without saying a single word. When you change the way you see yourself in the mirror, you change the way you live, choose, and are treated. And that change begins with something simple, repeated daily, until it becomes part of who you are. If this video resonated with you, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. I dress like the woman I am. Because the way you present yourself to the world is, in the end, a direct reflection of the value you recognize in yourself.